Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Robot Wars bubble. I'm Mark Smith, aka Free Fox.
Hello, my name is Jono, otherwise known as Die.
And I'm Harry from Team Panoramic. That's something you may best know me from the heavyweight line seat with Tango, and in recent times with a machine called Air Max that competed at the Robo Dojo event back in September 2020.
And you had Let's Dance, of course, in your most recent tournament too, in the Beetleweights.
Pretty much that, yeah.
And of course, people who know me, I'm the builder behind the Beetleweights, Sprocket Raccoon, and Snowdrop.
And I haven't actually built a single robot yet, but we're working on that.
So, would you like to tell us about what we mean by the Robot Wars bubble?
So, the Robot Wars bubble, it's a phrase I kind of thought of myself a number of weeks ago when I was actually just kind of thinking back. I'm going to define Robot Wars bubble as this kind of weird and magical time. I would say sometime between the end of Series 2 and possibly the end of Series 5, when Robot Wars was just the biggest thing in this country. It was ridiculous.
We're going to be delving into that, of course, but you couldn't really... it was everywhere, pretty much. Kids at school were talking about...
Yeah, you're right. You just could not escape Robot Wars at that time. It was just the thing that, everybody just seemed to be excited about. And it wasn't just only Robot Wars, but it seemed to bleed over into other programming as well, which we'll get into as well.
Definitely. My guess is that the Robot Wars bubble, in my opinion, started sometime around like the year 2000 when the pullback toys came onto the scene, like the first toys. And then, of course, there was the first video game as well, Robot Wars Metal Mayhem, which I'm still not very happy about because I felt duped into buying the game. And, well, I would say that was also when the Series 4 was kicking off. This was when it really started to get very, very popular, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just weird how Robot Wars just seem to just absolutely blow up. Because, I mean, it kind of started as this, little thing on, Friday evening on BBC Two. And before long,
like a niche fandom, if you like.
A little bit, yeah. But then, before long, I don't know, I just remember, like, going into school and, my classmates who, were not nerds. I was very much the nerd in my class.
Oh, yeah.
People who were not nerds were talking about Robot Wars that was on, like, on the Friday, on the Monday after. It was just weirdly surreal.
Yeah, I mean, even the jock-like kids in my class at school, they were kind of into it as well in a casual sort of way and stuff, because we used to make robots out of Lego and everything, and of course they always cheated and everything. But I was the resident nerd in the class, and what I lacked in, I guess, teammates and stuff, I made up for with innovation, which eventually paid off.
What about you?
Yeah, it was everybody. There's a fair few people around, even back in back in 1998. When Series 1 had just been on the TV, I remember we were talking about what our favourite programmes were in class, and myself, but a few others also said that our favourite ones were Robot Wars. I was the one that was certainly most into it. I even had a Robot Wars badge, because I was actually a member of the Robot Wars Club when I was 10 years old. So
the old Robot Wars Club, I can almost remember the little spiel they give at the end of every episode.
Building robots is dangerous. You must not be tempted to do so.
Without great care.
And it still rings true to this day, yes.
Imagine if they said that now. It's just like building robots are doing, just like, watch me try. We've got the internet.
Yes, and of course, parts like Antweight robots, Beetleweights, the parts for these things are a lot cheaper to build than heavyweights. It's more accessible to a lot of people now, of course.
Yeah, you didn't need the, the old robot builder's guide, but you got at the end of the First Great War VHS where it would tell you off for not using sealed lead-acid batteries.
Yeah, and of course we don't use those batteries anymore, and we use lithium polymer batteries, which have a completely different type of danger altogether now.
But the only reason why they have so much danger to them is because different lipos, you have different brands, you have different models, each to their own, and different ones will have different chemistry within the cells. And people look at fights nowadays and wonder why they go up in smoke, why they catch flames. It's because the chances are they might not have the right type of lipo battery for that particular robot, and considering the components it's using and the amount of currents it's drawing.
Well, I remember the merchandise we got with the first when we joined the Robot Wars Club. So this is from like 1998, after Series 1 and before Series 2. So it had a sort of big pamphlet that folded out and showed information about the house robots. And it also showed bits from American robot fighters, like the builders of Biohazard, La Machine, and the Agamemnon. Like the people like Dan Danknett, Trey Rusky, Carlo Bertoncini, and they were giving advice to budding Roboteers as well. This was ecstasy for me when I was a kid and everything, because even though I couldn't build a robot, and my dad was always quick to say, "No, you're not building a robot," and everything.
Look, my dad was like that as well, because he was like, because I really wanted to build a robot when I was like 5 years old and onwards from then. And I was like, no, we don't have the money, we don't have the tools, we don't have the space to put it anywhere. But I've proved.
My uncle Peter, on the other hand, he was an IBM engineer in Inverclyde, and he did build a robot. He built Rolling Thunder. So when I was 11, we went to his house in Skelmilly. We actually saw his robot Rolling Thunder, which was ginormous, because I'd never seen a heavyweight robot that close up before. And it was just amazing just how much bigger they are in real life, because when you see them on TV, they're so small and everything. So it makes you think it's more accessible. We may be going a wee bit off topic here, though, but this was like the early days of the bubble, if you like, I suppose. Because like I said, it really kicked off in the year 2000, but even in the late 90s, there was definitely a cult following going around.
I suppose for us, it was almost like it was our version of wrestling. You know, being a wrestling fan back then. So you would get absolutely enamored with, you know, certain stuff. Like everybody knew who the house robots were, just like everyone kind of knew who Hulk Hogan was.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of had their favorite, like, you know, the most common ones in our classroom, of course, were Razor, Chaos 2, Hypnodisc, those kinds of machines. But it was just such a weird time.
Likes of Roadblock Recyclops, of course, because that was a very cool design at the time. Robot the Bruce and everything. So this was like, even back in the first series, people were talking about it, which is quite something. Even with the reboot series, I remember I was up on my feet, like sort of going, "Yeah, come on!" With battles and stuff. I forgot how exciting it was. So it was like I rekindled my energy from the old Robot Wars days.
If you were like that seeing it on TV, how do you reckon you would have been seeing it in person?
Well, I remember going to an Extreme Robot event in 2018, like as a first live event, just as a spectator, and I wasn't exactly on the edge of my seat because it was not an actual competition as such, but I can imagine when there was a lot more at stake, like when I was watching Bugglebot Series 1 in the audience, and I was there as well, actually, I believe. We really were on the edge of our seats for that, and the robots were at a much smaller scale.
Yeah, because the one thing I do want to say about Extreme Robots, but in fairness, is they do have to have restrictions in terms of the spinning web. Because the tip speed limit there is 125 miles an hour, yeah. But the benefit of that being is that the smaller the weapon that you have, the higher RPM rating you get.
Yeah.
Can I annoy a lot of people here and say that I was actually at a fair few of the recording sessions for Classic Robot Wars?
Oh, you lucky git.
I went...
I mean, it didn't annoy me that much, but... Because what series did you attend?
I went to a few. I went to the Series 4 qualifiers. I went to Robot Wars Extreme 1. I went to Robot Wars Extreme 2. And I was also there for the Series 6 semi-finals. Did
we ever see you in the audience at all, in the footage?
You did not. I can tell you a few fights which I definitely did see, though, if you like. Yeah, so I was at recording for all of those series, but main fights which I definitely remember. I saw the Extreme Mayhem with Hypnodisc, Ming Free, and Willy Big Cheese. That was frightening in person.
Oh, yeah.
I saw Terahertz knocking Bigger Brother out of the Series 6 semi-finals.
Right.
Another Mayhem I saw the, it was Atomic 2, Mousetrap, and Fighting Talk. That was a fun one to watch. I think that was the first one I saw.
I do like Atomic.
Yeah.
I'm building an Antomic, funny enough that you mentioned that.
Oh, Antomic, because of course I built the Beetleweight Subatomic, which is now mostly just a shell in my cupboard.
Of course, they showed a whole load of like fights in a session. I think the lion's share of what I actually saw ended up being for the German and Dutch Robot Wars.
Of course, because they were filmed in the UK as well, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Well, they were all filmed kind of at the same time.
Yeah.
Those fights, I don't think I saw anything as remarkable as the key one. I always remember is the Ming Free Hypnodisc with a big cheese fight. That was special.
That's like Robot Wars Legends right there. Like Hypnodisc, of course, Wheelie Big Cheese, and Ming 3, although not as famous as the other two, still has it's still quite well known.
Yeah, but it's but because I mean at the time, of course, I was kind of in contact with the Pussycats who were the Cold Fusion team.
Yes,
and just, I don't know. I just remember at that time we were kind of sort of talking about the idea of going along to watch filming, and then I think it was one afternoon my dad sort of came to me saying that we're gonna go to this Robot Wars event in London. It was being filmed in St Albans.
Yeah.
That's where we did the whole thing. That's kind of, I would almost think that's kind of where that was almost peak Bubble, or at least it kind of felt that way. Because at that point, you'd kind of walk into a warehouse, you'd have this big long display of like some really historic robots. So I'm pretty sure Eubank the Mouse was in there.
Oh yes.
I'm sure that they had various bits of set and stuff. Then you come out and then you see the pits, which was just this enormous warehouse. And then you walked into kind of the next bit, which was kind of the main robot mayhem kind of display thing, and they just had all sorts in there, and it was the closest thing, when I think about it, to what was probably a Robot Wars convention, if you like.
It would have definitely felt like it too, because I've been to dealers' dens at furry fandom conventions, and I've also been to Brit Sci-Fi as well. And when they
it wasn't really a dealer's den. I mean, there was a merchandise table there for sure, but it wasn't
like
really a dealer's den.
Working at a certain place, and you knew where to find them.
Yeah, so they had a merch table there. They had one little kind of partition which had the 3 top seeds kind of on display. So Hypnodisc, Razor, and Chaos 2 were all just kind of there on display to and all the Roboteers were there to kind of talk to. They had another partition which had it had Behemoth, it had Bigger Brother in it, and it also had Plunderbird 2, interestingly. And it also had Plunderbird 4, which they had okay, this is going to be really weird. I remember just kind of watching the pits, and Mike Onslow actually wheeled Plunderbird 4 past me, and it was the first time I'd ever seen it. And of course, it was this amazing thing with the giant kind of slicing blade up the front.
It was not a particularly amazing robot in combat, but just
not in combat, but to see it.
Look at it, the actual artistry of it, the robot and everything.
Because I mean, up to this point, I'd seen, Pussycat, I'd seen, just things that were in Alan Gribble's workshop at the time. But this was the first time I was seeing like a big congregation of robots en masse, if you like.
You see just how big they are in person as well. It's just incredible. And
weirdly, I asked for really. Forgive me, I was only 10.
It's perfectly understandable.
But I remember asking Mike Onslow the weirdest question. It was, I asked him, why is it yellow? And his only response was, because it's Plunderbird 4.
Exactly.
And that's all I needed.
Because if I recall correctly, Plunderbird 1 was blue, and Plunderbird 2 was black, I think. I just thought it would be green, because Thunderbird 2 is green, but I always thought Plunderbird 4 would be... I always thought that Plunderbird 4 was yellow because Thunderbird 4 was yellow, but I didn't really give it any thought beyond that. But there you go.
There you go, indeed. But yeah, the other things, I had a Robot Mayhem, which kind of made it feel like Robot Wars had arrived, because you had in the center you had like the House Robot replicas with TVs kind of showing their best moments. They had the newly unreleased Robot Wars toys on display. It was absolutely just kind of mind-blowing just for a kid to kind of, you have this one little interest. you go along to this thing, and all of a sudden it's just this massive thing that, you are just suddenly immersed in.
It's like it went from niche fandom in around 1998 to the mainstream by the year 2000. That's when I think it was when Series 3 came along. And then into Series 4. That's when Robot Wars crossed over into the mainstream, if you like. This is when it really became big business, I'd say.
Because you could ask anybody, who's your favorite house robot, and they'd know what the house robots were, which is kind of weird to think about. You'd have a whole bunch of people who would say, "Oh yeah, Matilda was my favorite," or "Killot was my favorite." But just kind of that level of awareness was just something. And just looking back on it now, it's just like, I don't think that could ever happen again, really.
The reboot wasn't able to recapture that magic anyway.
No, because the BBC didn't promote it enough.
No, not enough episodes.
Oh, but that's for later on, because I do have a lot to say about that.
We will save that for later on. So, let's discuss some of the merchandise that came out from the time then, because we've got some of the more straightforward merchandise, but there was also quite a lot of bizarre merch as well. I think we'll start with the more straightforward stuff that most people will know about, of course. And like I was saying earlier, I think, my earliest memories of the merchandise were such things as the pullback toys. I remember my brother and I got one for Christmas in the year 2000. My brother got Matilda, and I got Sir Kill-A-Lot. And then a few months later, my dad and I went to Toys R Us, and they went and bought Shunt as well. And you'd get all these little props along with the house robots as well, like the bits of the pinball, for example, that you could play with and everything. And they were really good toys. They were really well built, good attention to detail.
They were fantastic little toys, weren't they? I've still got all of mine as well. The thing I distinctly remember was on the old Robot Wars website, they were making... Well, they'd been making a big deal about Robot Wars toys in the old Robot Wars magazine. Remember that? But also on the Robot Wars website, when Robot Wars had its own little kind of online storefront. And I could only choose one, and I ended up choosing Shunt. And I just remember the morning it turned up, I could not leave that thing alone. I was pained at having to go to school just because it was so cool to have this little bit of Robot Wars.
It was so well built. The plastic was like resistant to dents and chewing and everything. I mean, my Shunt still looks as immaculate as when I pretty much got it, which is amazing, really.
I mean, some of them had their little faults and stuff, but yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a sign of the times that, Robot Wars was big enough to have really good toys.
Yeah.
Like, another one of my sort of big lasting memories was walking into my local Toys R Us and seeing, pretty much from the moment you walked in, just kind of went around the corner, you'd see a feature wall just full of Robot Wars toys. Like, that's just kind of, you can't think of anything like that happening for anything remotely nerdy, at this point in time.
Didn't you say back, to me before, that in the Argus catalogue there was like 2 pages dedicated to Robot Wars merchandise alone?
It was a little bit later, but yes, I distinctly this is just going to turn into me recounting rubbish Robot Wars memories. But I distinctly remember being with my grandmother at Newton Abbot Railway Station. We just picked up the new Argos catalogue.
Yeah.
And we were just flipping through, sort of just looking and seeing what the new toys were, because of course winter autumn issue you get like the massive toy section to kind of get you ready for Christmas, and in there was a double page spread of the Argos catalogue full of nothing but Robot Wars toys, some of which I'd just never seen before. It was amazing. The 2 main ones I distinctly remember seeing in there was the brand new remote control Sir Kill-A-Lot toy.
Oh, yes.
And the big one which I was excited about was the Gauntlet playset, which included Exterminator, which I just went gaga over that thing.
The Robot Wars Arena, of course, that was designed for those mini-bots that came a bit later. That was quite hot property as well and everything, I remember.
Yeah, the mini-bot arena was brilliant. It's just so interesting to think just just the huge range of merchandise that Robot Wars actually had back in the day, and just how much stuff it touched. Like Robot Wars, pop single.
Yes, Android.
What the hell?
That was pretty much my reaction when I first read in the Robot Wars magazine, like the newsletters I got from the club about a single coming up, Robo Babe versus Sir Kill-A-Lot or something, Android Love, and I thought, well, this looks a bit naff.
It's so stupid, but it was great.
I never actually got to hear the song until long after the bubble burst, if you know what I mean, because it never charted in the UK top 40.
No, I wonder why.
Yeah, I'll tell you something fun about it though, is that we actually, that Christmas, I actually got that CD. I don't think I have it anymore, sadly. Just because I was really young and probably didn't take very good care of it, and secondly, it was a really thin, very, very easy to break jewel case.
Oh yeah.
But that CD actually had some quite interesting things on it, because that CD, you could actually put it into your computer, not only rip the music, but it also had its own little CD-ROM elements to it as well. So it had the music video on there. It had like live lyrics, so you could actually sing along if you wanted to.
You'd have to sing very quickly, of course.
Did anyone else ever do this thing where they get any remote control cards they would find in the house, tape some bits of cardboard to it, and then have any weapons or anything that they could find lying around the house, tape it to their creations, and have it fight it around in the living room?
Yeah, I did that.
I absolutely did that. I didn't attach cardboard to anything, but I absolutely treated my remote control cars as robots to try and smash up other stuff. I probably shouldn't have, because they weren't designed for it in the slightest, but that didn't stop me.
Yeah, I had the Tyco RC revolver, which was kind of wedge-shaped in the way from the front, so that would have been... I used to have to fight a friend's remote control car in the street, but my friend's dad wasn't so keen on it because he said mine might break, even though mine looked a lot tougher. Eventually, though, my revolver car did stop working, and hasn't worked since 1999. I did cut it open recently so I could check the circuit board and see if anything had broken, but none of the wires had come loose, so it's a mystery to me why it broke down.
I suppose a good thing now that, you are where you are now, I suppose you probably stand a chance of actually fixing it if you want to.
Well, the thing is, I don't know what's broken inside it, so it could just be a bit of the circuit board or something. Oh well. If it was a broken soldering connection, I could have fixed that, but it's not that, so... But yeah, and what kind of car did you have, Harry?
To be honest, I can't remember. I had a ton when I was young, because I've had different toys. I've had different Tyco RC cars. I've even had a Tamiya at the age of 6 years old.
I had a Tyco RC Super Rebound.
Was that the one with the arm that rotated on the side?
Yes, it was. And it was a blast to use.
I can see where Gus Collier got his idea from then for his new Bad for the Mucker robot.
In fact, I'm hopefully not going to make you all jealous when I say that I actually did one of these little RC car Robot Wars battles with David Gribble back in the day.
Wait, what?
Nice.
Yeah.
How did you get him to do that?
It was just after Series 3. We'd come back from Series 3 and I'd gone to visit Alan Gribble's workshop. And for whatever reason, I brought my Super Rebound with me. I had no reason to whatsoever, apart from the fact that I just felt like bringing it, so that's what happened. And yeah, and Robin Herrick, he had imported a treaded RC car, also for Tyco RC, called a Nitro Dozer, which was one of the coolest. It was called a Nitro Dozer, which was one of the coolest RC cars I'd ever seen in my life up to that point.
I'm gonna have to look that up because somehow I've missed that.
I don't think it was ever released in the UK, so I think Robin had to import it.
Oh,
but
right.
But it was just after we'd kind of sort of seen Pussycat the Robot and all that kind of stuff, and we were just kind of outside the workshop in his back garden, and randomly, just me and Dave Gribble started driving RC cars around. I started driving my Super Rebound around. David started driving Robin's Nitro Dozer around, and we ended up starting to have a little battle, and it was great. I think it was fairly evenly matched. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and raid my my parents' home movies because I think they've actually got some camcorder footage of me actually, having that little battle in Alan Gribble's back garden.
That would be so cool to see.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at the Nitro Dozer now, and somehow I've digged the archives for Taiko RC for decades, and somehow I've not seen this one.
It's really cool. It's so it had like a really long kind of form, so it just looked like this really steep vehicle, and then when it reversed, the treads kind of reared up and it kind of became square shaped, and the back spoiler actually came down and it kind of turned into like a bulldozer blade.
That's pretty clever.
Which, for a Robot Wars kid, that would have just absolutely set their world alight. So it's a shame we never had one of those, but yeah.
Even if we did, I probably wouldn't have been able to afford it with my pocket money.
Probably not. I'm going to have to look up on eBay if you can still get them.
Of course, it was obvious that certain things like toys, RC cars, that would become merchandise. The CD single, I guess, that was a popular thing at the time as well. But there was also quite a lot of more obscure Robot Wars merchandise that was knocking about. I remember I had a Matilda pajama top, like Robot Wars pajamas, for example. And people could also get T-shirts of the other house robots, Sir Killot pajamas, even a bathrobe.
That was the thing.
I remember the giant bathrobe in the I remember that being advertised in the Robot Wars magazine back in the day.
Quite something, yeah.
But yeah, oh god, I had so much weird stuff.
They had lunchboxes, thermos flasks, robot guides, of course, for Series 4 and Extreme, because I remember my brother getting the robot guide for Robot Wars Series 4. That was not one of the more bizarre bits of merchandise, of course, but it was definitely a sign of the time. There was a pencil case, of course. You had one of those, didn't you?
I had 2 Robot Wars pencil cases. And my friends had another type of Robot Wars pencil case. I had a Robot Wars kind of pencil tin. There was a Robot Wars trading card game, which was basically Top Trumps, but it came in this really cool, clear plastic kind of little case, which was just really neat.
Mm-hmm.
There was, going back to toys, do you remember those Robot Wars pit stop toys?
No, I don't.
You don't? Oh, those were great. They didn't make very many of them. They made Hypnodisc, Panic Attack, and Matilda. And the idea was there was this kind of base chassis, if you like, and then you could effectively build up your own competitor robot. And
all right, it was like a sort of construction kit.
A little bit, yeah. And it came with like alternative pieces, so you could create like I suppose you could call it like an alternate universe Hypnodisc or an alternate universe Panic Attack or something like that. But yeah, that was something else that came along.
Looking at it on the wiki right now, and it's like one of those snap kits you would get, if you like, for model plane. It's a robot.
A little bit. You did have to put it together with some screws, from what I remember rightly, but that wasn't the only thing as well that was just weird and wonderful. Pin badges, I got at least a couple of those.
I had one of them, but I seem to have lost it. That came with part of my club membership.
Yep, exactly. I seem to remember you mentioning to me that there was a Robot Wars food tie-in at a restaurant somewhere.
There was. Back in the year 2002, there was a Robot Wars kids meal promotion, and it wasn't with the likes of, say, McDonald's, Burger King, or KFC. It was actually with Little Chef, of all places.
Brilliant.
I mean, I remember Little Chef, of course. I mean, we didn't really eat there very often, but obviously it wasn't really as desirable as the other restaurant chains we went to. But they were basically, for those who aren't familiar, they were a chain of roadside restaurants, if you like, that were a familiar sight on British motorways and dual carriageways for quite a while, up until the mid-2000s. And, well, there's none of them left anymore these days, of course.
I think there are a few still going.
You have to really look for them. They do exist, but you have to look for them.
It's a bit like with Wimpy Burger these days. There used to be a lot more of them, and now there's only very few.
I think, because the closest Little Chef to me, there's one just outside of Yeovil, and there is another one in the Dorset area.
I'm having a little Google Maps to see where my nearest one is, if it's still there, of course.
And I think Little Chef as a company, I think, went bust.
Yeah.
And I think that all the Little Chefs that remain in the UK are now independently owned.
Independently owned and under different brands, because I'm looking on this here now, and all the Little Chef ones are saying things like permanently closed, for example, which is a shame. I remember seeing this advertised in a video games magazine. I think it was Games Master magazine, perhaps, because a lot of video game magazines at the time would have all these adverts in it, of course, that I would remember looking at. And I remember it saying Robot Wars Kids Meal, only at Little Chef.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah, I mean, Little Chef was quite an obscure choice, really. And everything.
I mean, even back then, Little Chef wasn't a big deal. But
no. No, it wasn't. So it's a bit of a bizarre choice, really, when you think about it. But, well...
Yeah, something I've just found, and I don't know why this has made me laugh so much, but, Mark, the closest Little Chef near you that is still open to this day, it's not in Scotland, unfortunately, but it is, of all places, Newcastle upon Tyne.
Ah. Yeah, just as the closest Wimpy restaurant to me is up in Fraserburgh, up in the north coast of Aberdeenshire. It's crazy.
How long ago was it that Wimpy went bust?
Oh, a good few years.
I think it might still be going. I think there's one
it's
near
still
me.
going. It's still going in the UK.
Is it still going? Okay, they've still got their website, and so is Little Chef. But I do think that there used to be one at Bream, but I think
that's the one I went to.
Yeah,
Bream,
but that one
is.
But I think the owners of the holiday park just kind of tossed them out in favour of something else. But the Wimpy that I can remember recalling right was at the Guildford Spectrum, which is where the Extreme Robots events are usually held.
All right. We had a Wimpy in Dundee, but it was a part of the Dundee Mega Bowl, the bowling alley.
Because I've had Wimpy. Last time was definitely at the Guildford Spectrum during the Extreme Robots event, in between the shows. And when I took it back to my pit table, I just could not believe how pasty the chicken products were. The chicken nuggets and the chicken burgers. There was barely any flavour to it. The texture was very weird. I could go on.
I could believe it. So go on, Mark. Fill us in. What was the Robot Wars children's meal at Little Chef like? Give us our review. Is it Michelin star worthy or what?
Well, let me say I never actually had the kids' meal, so I'm not able to comment on that there. But I can tell you what came with the kids' meal. You know, like the bits and pieces that did come with it.
I can't wait for this.
Right. So aside from the meal itself, the accessories came in a yellow and black plastic bag which said "Free Robot Wars toys" on it.
Nice.
And it would tell you what the toy was on the label, even though it looked like one of those lucky bags, for example. So the name was on it anyway. So it came with a flyer, which would show you all these accessories and mini-bots that could come with the Little Chef promotion. So basically, you'd get a mini-bot.
A mini-bot? Really?
What? Yes. You could get a mini-bot, and the four you could choose, collect them all, it says on the flyer: Sir Killalot, Razor, Hypnodisc, and Chaos 2. That's the four you could get. And it also came with some accessories like the mini-bot ramp, traffic cone, and some of the other stuff that would have been used for the pinball. All of these accessories were exclusive to the promotion.
That's ridiculous, but amazing.
The robot's name was always included on the lucky bag because of legal information. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of what you would expect from a sort of kids' meal tie-in and everything. So, yeah.
But it's not just all of these amazing, weird bits of merch. But it's just a number of places you'd see it. Like, this is like I remember this even after Robot Wars started to die down. But I remember seeing Robot Wars toys being sold in TJ Maxx.
Oh yeah, TJ Maxx it is in the UK, of course.
Yeah,
I think it used to be TJ Maxx over here, didn't it?
Well, I don't know. It definitely was TK Maxx in the mid-2000s because that's what Robbie Williams sang on his song Rude Box. TK Maxx cost less.
I'm surprised anyone remembers that one.
Yeah, you were seeing Robot Wars stuff in Next clothing, in Marks and Spencers.
I suppose you would see things like the pajamas there. I suppose maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
There was Robot Wars duvet set as well, like the duvet.
Robot Wars duvet set, yeah, of course.
There was even Robot Wars toiletry kits as well. Like shower gel and stuff.
Shut up! That's not true.
Oh no, it's true. It's true. Let me try and find it here.
Oh my god!
While you're finding out, there's one thing I found on Google that I don't know if anyone remembers because I somehow completely forgot this was even a thing. The Robot Wars board game.
Oh, I want to play that. I remember seeing that in the Argos catalogue and wondering what it was like to play.
It'd be nice for somebody to bring that to RoboNerd, and then we could all have a go at it.
Oh, absolutely. That'd be great fun.
There's one on eBay. There's quite a few of them. I've seen them a few times in the charity shop, if I can recall, right? But they're not even that expensive to buy. There is one starting bid at £2.30.
I might have to grab one of those.
That'd be pretty cool.
I mean, I doubt I'd ever actually play it because I'm rubbish when it comes to those kinds of board games. But just have for the collection. That's probably worth having.
Yeah, I'm gonna Discord you. So I'm gonna send you the picture of the wash kit.
Oh,
the Robot Wars what?
Why?
What
Right, I'm going to drop that in the Discord.
Oh.
I mean, when I was a boy, I had a tube of Tom and Jerry branded toothpaste, so it stands to reason. I mean, Robot Wars washing kit of all things. That's when it's really got somewhere. Lamps, waste paper baskets, a wristwatch.
But it just kind of goes back to the whole thing that Robot Wars at this point was just this absolutely massive bubble. There
was a phone case for the Nokia 3310 with Sir Killalot on it.
I remember seeing that. I distinctly remember seeing that.
A bizarre 3D viewer shaped like Sir Killalot's helmet. Curtains, coasters, cards for Father's Day, birthdays.
Seriously, if you were a kid back then and you remember it, then surely you must remember it's never been as good a time to be a Robot Combat fan as it was back then. Because, I mean, you could just get kitted out with all this stuff. Like, I've seen these various videos of, for God's sake, I forgot that existed.
Forgot what? What have you found?
Oh, only the finest dinner that anyone could ever hope to eat. Yeah. Only the HP pasta shapes in tomato sauce Robot Wars.
Yes, even that existed. Can you believe that? It's crazy.
I have completely forgotten that was even a thing.
I know. I mean, it's not something you're going to be able to find on eBay anymore, that's for sure. Unless Ashens has got something, I might be interested.
It's probably it might be in a war bunker somewhere.
Oh yeah. There was also cereal tie-ins as well with Ricicles, Corn Pops, Honey Loops. Yeah, I completely forgot about Ricicles and Corn Pops and stuff. They were advertised in the UK, but I don't know anyone who ever actually ate them.
I ate Corn Pops and Ricicles. I love them both.
Oh, well then.
Yeah, I love both of them and was very sad when they stopped doing both of them.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, if you were young at this point in time, just how good did we have it?
It's just there was everything. There was just everything that you could want from it, really. Even back in those days, I thought that some of these things were kind of tacky. Like, I thought the kids' meal was kind of tacky, for example, but still.
But of course, Robot Wars merch is weird, it's wonderful, it's great. But one thing I don't think we've really touched on is just how this kind of Robot Wars bubble, if you like, just kind of expanded and kind of encompassed other things. Like, did you notice around the time that Robot Wars was kind of really big and really popular, the sheer number of kind of like technology kind of oriented TV shows that you ended up getting? So, good example, or perfect example, Techno Games.
Of course. That came around the year 2000. Well, the first series was in the year 2000 when Robot Wars was at its absolute peak in popularity, pretty much.
Yeah, and that went on for a few series. Scrappy Challenge, I remember that being really popular around the time, especially on Channel 4. That was kind of Channel 4's, like, technological draw, if you like. I remember smaller things, like there was a series called Robots Revenge, which just kind of followed Roboteers as they kind of got their machines ready to kind of fight. The other big...
Was that the one that Mike Constable and Brian Kilburn were involved with?
Yes, it was. I do believe it was. And I believe it also showed... excuse me. I'm sure it showed early works and progresses for Bigger Brother, the Series 5 Bigger Brother. And it also showed early development Barbarous, from what I remember. But, of course, TV wasn't the only thing it touched. Who here remembers the Real Robots magazine?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm absolutely certain that, Robot Wars' meteoropic popularity absolutely had some responsibility in Real Robots being greenlit.
It's like one of those magazines you get for like an RC car or model that you collect the issue and it comes with a part with each bit, basically. That's what Real Robots was. And, well, the thing that you built with Real Robots was this thing called Cybot.
Yep.
I need Cybot back in my life.
Yep. Might never really work that well, but, yeah, it was...
Did the front wheels on yours kept breaking?
Front caster ended up breaking a lot, yes.
Yes, because no matter how careful I was with Cybot, for any given reason, the front wheel caster just kept breaking. We had to keep ordering a newer one.
Yeah, for us, eventually when Cybot kind of got to this one point, they started doing this thing called Cyball. Because, apart from Cybot, as cool as it was, to have these little bits of, robot that you could kind of put together for a week. It doesn't matter that it wasn't, fighting robot related. But you could definitely tell how Robot Wars kind of influenced it in a couple of other areas. They had a whole section of the magazine which would cover a fighting robot every issue, which was really cool. And Rex's Robot Challenge, let's not forget. I was dead set on doing it. Sadly, I just never had the means to do it. But not only that, with issue 2, there was actually a VHS that came with issue 2, which kind of served as a bit of a like a preview for what the series going forward was going to be like and what Cybot was going to be able to do and all that kind of thing. And who should be in that but not only Rex Garrett in his own little kind of segment, but the whole thing was narrated by Craig Charles.
Of course.
Yeah.
I remember actually that Jean-Luc, who's the builder of Igor in the Beetleweight robot scene, he actually brought a Cybot to some recent Beetleweight events, mainly as cannon fodder, but...
a cruel bastard.
I know, I was going to... Boo!
Yeah, sorry. But Smart Vulpus, my friend who's helped me out with Sprocket Raccoon a few times in the last year or so, he actually, after the BBB Beetle Champs 2021, where we reached the quarterfinals, he saw Cybot in the arena, and he got bitten by the bug, if you know what I mean. So he went onto eBay and went up to Bath and bought these all these old magazines with old Cybot parts from these people that were basically having some stuff to clear out. So I don't know where he is in relation to building a working Cybot, but even if there are some parts missing, I'm sure he'll adapt because he's pretty good with his electronics. But I hope he isn't as cruel as Jean-Luc is, if you know what I mean.
I doubt that. I think he'd take care of it. I think that because I think some people did kind of frown upon the idea of putting a spinner on Cybots.
Yeah.
And seeing how joy it was getting in the arena, it was just heartbreaking to watch.
Yeah. That plastic was very brittle. It's not meant for robot combat.
No, it wasn't built for it in the slightest. I'm sure it probably blew up really good, but it's still kind of sad to kind of do that to a Cybot, I would have thought, just because you can't really get them anymore, and finding one that actually works is probably very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting because I don't know whereabouts in the UK this is. There is a Cybot on Facebook Marketplace.
How many issues did did it last for then? Real Robots.
Oh, we went for ages. I think it went as high as 80, maybe even 90 issues.
Quite a lot of issues.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of did it in phases. So the first phase you'd build Cybots. The second phase you'd build a handset, which you could use to kind of remote control them, which you could actually have a little Tamagotchi game on, which was weird in itself, which implies that Cybot could die.
I mean, technically, it did die at the Bristol Bot Builders event.
Naughty.
Very naughty.
Yeah, there was a stage where you could, program it from a PC. There was a stage where you could make it look like a weird Formula One race car, or if you wanted. There was a phase where you could, turn it into a soccer robot, which absolutely just never worked, by the way.
There's another phase I'm looking at, because apparently it runs to 96 issues, and the final, which is phase 5, was Tom tracking orbital module. Tom is a smaller robot than Cybot with a similar look. It features include scanning sonar, a higher speed, full programmability, emotions, and interaction with Cybot.
Oh yeah.
I remember that. Again, it never worked, but
Are there any pictures of it anywhere? Because somehow I've never seen it.
I mean, there's an archive of Cybot Builder and Real Robots online if you can find them. Don't think there's anything on the official Elon Musk. Right, so there is an actual archive of Real Robots, and that I'll try and link to you guys.
There's Tom.
Oh yeah, looks like a vacuum
Which
cleaner.
Is that?
Oh my god!
What?
It's really cute.
What
I
is
like
that? What is it?
It's really cute.
It looks like a bloody door handle.
It would work as it's like an early Roomba sort of thing, if you know what I mean. I can just imagine that cleaning the floor.
Here's a collection of a bunch of stuff, including the handset.
It was all very 2001, like early 2000s sort of tech and everything, where everything was bright and colourful and seemed really futuristic for the time.
And see-through as well.
Of course, I mean, I
It
still
had
love
to be see-through.
robots, but everything was really see-through back then, because I remember the Game Boy Color that was see-through, PlayStation controls that was see-through, and the Game Boy Color cartridges were all see-through as well.
Oh yeah, there was a headset you could build as well. That's something I forgot about.
Oh wow, some neat little factoids there, though, definitely. So you could do a sort of the magazine itself that would cover stuff like workshop, like Rex Garrett would have a robot building workshop section in the magazines. There'd be a bit about real life robots, for example, like the Terminator, if you like in the film. And then there was things like rescue robots, sort of robots that are used in bomb disposal or by the fire service.
Well, utility robots, I suppose you could call them.
Utility robots, yes. A bit about cyber pets as well. That's because we all remember those sorts of things. I think Furby was one of them. That's listed on the website.
Oh my god, bloody Furby. My parents bought me one, and I don't know why, because I spent most of the time trying to shut it up and shut it in the cupboard, and it just would not stop crying. Like, what? You could not turn the thing off.
It was like one of those hot property things that you couldn't turn off, like Tamagotchi. Remember that?
The handset had its own Tamagotchi in it.
Yeah, but at least with the Tamagotchi, you could at least let them die.
Furby didn't die until the batteries ran out.
Pretty much.
God damn it. Underwater robots. I'll have to give a little look at this myself and everything. You can't zoom into the pictures or anything.
Yeah, the Real Robots magazine was it was a really cool read. Like like some of the stuff that, especially the Robot Wars sections, where because they'd not only cover Robot Wars stuff, they would actually do quite a bit of detail into quite a number of classic BattleBots competitors as well.
Yeah.
So I distinctly remember there was a really good section about Nightmare. There was a good section about Mauler. I'm pretty sure that there was I'm pretty sure there was a good section on Sonawai Archie.
And there's even Robot Wars themed comics, would you believe, that were found in like Real Robots sort of magazine.
Yep, those comics were brilliant. I've managed to track down who did them.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. I need to have a look in my Facebook messages to actually see if I can find the name of the person who actually did them. His name was someone called John Ross, who did a lot of
Jonathan.
Oh no, just not Jonathan, just John Ross.
Jonathan.
John
So
Ross.
obviously not to be confused with Jonathan Ross.
No.
No, not the same guy. Let's see.
They were very well drawn. You know, they had that sort of typical superhero comic sort of style and everything, but with the house robots being front and center stage.
Yeah, and John Ross, the other stuff he would do is more recently he's done stuff for Doctor Who.
Oh yeah.
So Doctor Who comic he's been involved in. Okay, this is a cool picture where he's done Doctor Who meeting Spider-Man.
All right. Share that.
Okay, I'm going to share this, and I think you're going to get a bit of a flash of nostalgia just from the style of it.
Oh wow.
Oh wow, yeah.
Like, you can tell that it's the same guy.
Same style and everything. So some familiar territory, but instead you got the house robots as the main focus there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this guy was responsible for doing the those amazing comic strips that you would have seen in the Robot Wars magazine, which included such amazing things, such as Dr. Zulu's Robot Hospital column, which was. Please tell me you remember that.
Vaguely, but I mean, 'cause I didn't really read those particular magazines at that time, but I did hear about it.
Well, one of it was kind of covered in a Robot War in a episode of Extreme, which was a very funny thing, but it was just a column where Kieran Byrne would just absolutely rip into people who wrote into him, and it was great.
So I suppose at this stage we should now discuss when the bubble burst for the Robot Wars bubble.
Yeah. I don't think there's a definite time when it happened. I think there's only just like a general feeling for when it kind of started to wind down. For me, I think it started winding down, I would say, from the start of Series 6. Stuff.
That makes sense, really. I mean, it was like 2002 going into 2003. I definitely think it was winding down when Channel 5 ended up with Robot Wars Series 7. I think that's when I was starting to kind of lose interest anyway, and I was actually missing episodes.
I mean, it's understandable as to why that is, considering how much of a completely different approach that Channel 5 gave Robot Wars when they nabbed the broadcasting rights from the BBC. For me, the bubble pretty much started to burst when we were reaching the end of Series 6, because at the time the final had finished, and we thought that was pretty much it. But what we didn't realise was that there was the UK versus Germany, and I think there were a couple of other things after that, question mark.
Do you think people were just getting Robot Wars out of that stage? Or what do you think?
What it was for me, because, for example, the UK versus Germany thing, I knew nothing about that until 10 years later when I was watching it on a YouTube channel. Because I just didn't see any promotion or anything. I didn't see any. I literally did not see anything being mentioned. No promotions, nothing in the TV guides. And I just didn't even know it was a thing until literally 10 years later after it broadcasted.
It almost feels like they'd kind of reached the stage where they were just trying to create Robot Wars filler content, for lack of a better word.
I can get what you mean by there. And after that, for me, it was just by the time we were at Series 7, when we saw what 5, as they were called at the time, did to it, all just went downhill from there.
Yeah.
And especially when they had 20k up for grabs.
Yeah, I think they really boasted about the prize money quite a lot.
Especially up front, they certainly did, but later on that went mysteriously quiet, I found. But that is just fast for show.
On a personal, I never really liked the advert breaks, for example, and I didn't like the fact there was already a lot of bits especially in Series 6 and 7, for example, where they would show lots of what was happening in the show before you actually saw it, like spoilers and everything. I mean, Mr. Psycho on YouTube actually made a joke about this on his videos, where he would then go out and do something else while the intro to the video was starting or something like that, so you didn't see the spoilers.
The TV show is one thing, but something just seemed to change in people's minds. Because I mean, the show doing its thing was one thing, but
maybe people were starting just to get a bit fatigued from.
I think it must have been because
I know I was, and I think after all the controversy around Series 7 and everything, like with the grand final and all that, I decided, all right, I'm done with this. And as it turned out, the series was done too anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I distinctly remember, Series 7 kind of ending and me just feeling like it just didn't feel right. And
it really did it really did feel like that was going to be it, in a way.
I mean, we're not gonna. I mean, this isn't gonna turn into a thing of did X Robot cheat? Was there
No, we're not
like
going to
that?
do that because it's been done to death, and there's two sides to every argument, pretty much.
And it's been 20 years to think about it, and yet people are still arguing about it to this day. It's been 20 bloody years. Let it go, please.
Yeah, I mean, whether Storm 2 was robbed or not, I mean, it's all in the past now, anyway.
Yeah, but the thing I distinctly remember was like what a final impression to leave on your audience. That this
with a bang, put it that way.
It kind of ended with this weird thing of it just not feeling right, and and it would just remain like that for years.
Because every previous series, you felt like it was going to come back again after that, like people wanting more and more of it. But for Series 7, something just didn't seem quite right.
There was a lot of things that, to me, didn't feel quite right. For example, like Craig's presenting style was complete. I'm convinced they either fed him something or spiked his drink or drugged him with something before the film, because he was more shouty.
Yeah.
He was more. I don't like to use the word arrogant, because that's probably not the right word for it.
In your face,
but
maybe?
Pretty much that, yeah. But it was just that. And also in terms of. Because usually, for Series 6 example, when you'd hear Steve McDonald say, like, from Newcastle, so Ripper, and then you'd hear Jonathan Pierce being a bit witty, and all the jokes he would make. But then when you see Series 7, it's just more about what happens in the previous wars, or what happens at the robot's previous attempt at coming into the arena, and it just got.
It all started to feel very routine, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
It became very routine, and eventually you could even tell that people who were working on the show felt like it was becoming routine, and even they seemed to be getting a little bit tired of it.
It takes the excitement out of it a bit, doesn't it, and stuff. I mean, you need a bit of a break from these things. On another note, I remember, this was a long time ago, of course, before Robot Wars, but I remember, Games Master, the TV series from the 90s?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Well, there was one series which was not hosted by Dominic Diamond, but by Dexter Fletcher. And the producers basically insisted that he put on a very in-your-face sort of persona, if you like, for the series. And, of course, it didn't really come off natural, and poor Dexter probably felt a bit awkward doing it as well, which is a shame, because he's a great actor, but was kind of shortchanged when he tried being a presenter, I suppose. And Craig Charles, I mean, he's an actor himself as well, but he did a fantastic job presenting Robot Wars. But I think what he was asked to do for Series 7, it did come across as a bit forced, if you like. I think it seems so natural.
I went back and watched a fair few grand finals, and the best way I can kind of describe how each final kind of felt, especially from Series 1, 2, 3, and certainly 4, and kind of 5, was by the time the grand final had rolled around, there was almost this kind of feeling of grand ceremony to things.
Yeah.
You would get the intro that Craig would always give, like, this is the road to Armageddon.
Get you hyped up.
You'd hype it up. You'd have tons of like different segments. It kind of felt like a good kind of so up, and then when the champion was eventually crowned, you get the whole thing, of they'd walk into the arena, they'd have all that kind of thing, but the series almost always left on such a high note.
It left you wanting more. It was like triumphant because they had a new champion crowned, and it left you waiting for more, basically.
Yeah, it left you wanting more. It felt it kind of pumped you up for like, can they defend it next year? That kind of thing. But I would say from Series 6, that kind of stopped happening, really. The grand final, final trophy presentation just kind of feels like any other kind of end-of-match interview.
It's because they've been doing so many of these presentations, I think, during Robot Wars Extreme as well, and through these other smaller tournaments, for example. And in Extreme,
it all become routine.
Yeah, because you had all these different little tournaments where you get all these different trophies, so it became more routine. So being the winner of the main event really was seen as just like any other tournament, really, because the trophies all look pretty much the same.
Yeah, it was just another tournament to kind of watch, and you were just watching, yes, another winner. And
so Robot Wars probably just ended up getting a bit too big, really, a bit too big and bloated.
It kind of got big. It didn't really know where to go next, and I think really following that, it just kind of fell off a bit of a cliff, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, every series, every TV show has a sort of cycle, if you like, where it starts and then reaches peak popularity, then fizzles out a bit. Gladiators was like that in the 90s as well, I remember.
Yeah, I mean, Gladiators, it had a definite finish. It was less of a case of, it just, one day just stopped coming on.
Yeah.
They said, okay, the last one is going to be this time. Then they, had a really big kind of send-off for it. They had like really good touching tribute towards the end.
They were talking about, you're going to come back next year? That sort of thing,
Yeah, that was that. But yeah, you think about that, grand final of Series 7, and you think about how that ended. It was like, well, that's the end of that. And then, sure enough.
The other thing about it was that many famous robots from the past did not make an appearance, so there was no sign of Hypnodisc, Razor, or Chaos 2 or anything like that.
No.
So,
I mean, at this point, maybe...
it opened up the field to some of the other competitors, for example. So, for example, we saw Bulldog Breed and Atomic reach the series semi-finals for the first time and reach their true potentials, for example. So there was some good out of that as well, but you could definitely tell there was some change in the air.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of iterated it in various ways throughout this, but yeah, I think towards the end, it just kind of felt like, okay, well, shall we just do it all again next time around? Because especially towards the kind of the end of the series, I suppose the way to think about it is, if you think back to Series 1, if you go back to, then if you think about how the appearance of the show kind of changed for Series 2, and how there was another big change in, for Series 3, then you had another big change again for Series 4. And then from that point, Robot Wars Arena, apart from a few small cosmetic changes, didn't change that much, really, especially towards the end.
When Robot Wars essentially came to an end, I think most people in the UK thought that was pretty much it for the robot combat scene, because I didn't know a thing about, for example, the live shows or anything outside of robot combat that was going on. Until about 2010, when I was watching the reruns on Dave, and I searched, of all things, Robot Wars 2010 on YouTube to see if anything was still going on, and that was how I ended up coming across the Roaming Robots events.
Yeah. We still had regular heavyweight, featherweight, and antweight events and stuff, so, yeah.
Oh yeah, they both still get going, but I suppose at that point, robot fighting had just kind of, at the very least, dropped from the public kind of consciousness, really. It was just kind of this weird show. Oh yeah, do you remember Robot Wars? I remember
It was basically like very popular for a while, and then it kind of went out of fashion, as many fads do.
Yeah.
Because I do feel that when Robot Wars essentially ended, Robot Combat became more of an underground thing, and not a lot of people knew. I mean, thankfully, With roaming robots, because during the off-air time, they had the roaming robots. You've had Robots Extreme Wars Live. You've also got Robots Live as well, who still, despite Robot Wars being pulled off at the time, they have had massive success on the live scene, traveling all over the country.
Mm.
Oh, the appetite for good robot fighting, I don't think ever really went away. But yeah,
It started out as an underground sport, and it went back to where it came from, basically.
At least for a little while.
With all that in mind, I guess what we should be asking is, could the bubble ever come back, do you think? Like, we had the reboot series about 20 years later, after the original Robot Wars series. A new generation of Robot Wars fans had come along, and a new generation of merchandising. But it didn't really work out the same way the classic series did.
No, it never really kind of reached that height, did it? It just never really had the chance to properly get going. I mean, even if we were to kind of compare, across the pond, I mean, obviously you have, Hexbug who are enjoying quite a lot of success with their line of Hexbugs, which is probably some of the more significant, robot fighting toys that we've seen in years.
Even then, Robot Wars Hexbug Arena did look a bit half-arsed, and the only official Robot Wars robot we actually saw made into Hexbug was Matilda, because the other two that were included in the arena were Royal Pain and Impulse, which were basically just generic things that you could put together and everything. It's not like with BattleBots, where you would get actual robots from BattleBots that you could fight with.
But that is true. The thing I was more getting at was, it's not reached, even, with all of those Xbox, it's not reached the same level of hysteria, for lack of a better word. It's not kind of reached that height that it once was.
It's always kind of just been there. I've seen them on the shelves in Smith's toy store when it was a new thing.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not quite the same level of hype as such. I mean, there was also an unreleased first aid kit, apparently, for it was Robot Wars themed, which was quite a bizarre choice. Of course, there was the Haynes manual as well, which I actually own. That basically covered Robot Wars Series 8, 9, and 10, like the reboot series.
I think that there was a bubble that was brought to this series, because I think in terms of the amount of new fans it ended up developing, as well as the new people it ended up bringing to the community. And I think a lot of people who we now have in the UK Roboteering community, we probably would not have if it weren't for the Robot Wars reboot.
Including myself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I didn't decide to start building until after Series 10 had ended. I decided that's the time I wanted to get involved in everything. And watching Series 8, it rekindled the joy I had of watching the show when I was younger. So I was kind of skeptical as to whether I would enjoy Robot Wars again, but once I saw those fights again, I was like up on my feet and everything, cheering on the competitors and stuff. It was great fun. So yeah, it was nice to see there was a resurgence for Robot Wars, and I could understand why there was only a few episodes for the first of the reboot series just to test the waters. But I was a bit disappointed they didn't try to scale things up a bit afterwards and expand that.
That's the thing we've been saying, because after Series 9, we have been saying to the production company to get more robots into the show so that the fans can have more episodes and that us Roboteers can have a higher chance of actually getting in. But they went into the complete opposite with Series 10.
Less robots. They went down from 40 to 30. Okay, they gave more time to show more about the robots and stuff, but it felt like a step backwards in some respects. Maybe if they had more episodes, if you like double the number of episodes, you'd still get more robots.
But the problem for me was when Series 8 came along and we all started first hearing about it, and we had the production company getting into contact and telling us about the application process, and a large number filled in. But the amount of robots that were getting rejected was actually quite surprising, and seeing who was getting rejected. For example, probably the biggest shocker was Toxic 2.
Toxic was rejected as well, but Toxic 2 was one of the Foxic is a different robot from Toxic. I'm getting mixed up. Toxic 2 was a flipper that was quite successful in the live scene, I understand.
Yeah, it won a 2015 World Championship.
Even Iron
it's
Off
won.
didn't get in until Series 10.
Yeah, but the thing is, I will go back to Iron Ore, but Toxic 2, the amount of success that robot has had on the live scene did not get selected at all for the series.
Crazy.
And because notice how, for example, you had TR3,
yeah,
and you had Eruption. Have you ever wondered why, for example, TR2 had the bum axe and Eruption had the claw on the top of the flipper in Series 8?
I never wondered why, but yeah.
The producers told them to do that.
Oh god!
And they said to them because of the we don't
just a little
want
gimmick or something
a lot
to add,
of,
basically.
We don't want a lot of wedge flippers. So basically, they said put this on your robot, otherwise you're not getting on the show.
I can understand why they let in certain robots, like say Ms. Nightshade or MR Speed Squared, because at least they had some sort of gimmick to them that made them stand out, if you like, made them unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing at the time, because they put Miss Nightshade in, but they put TR2 as an unused reserve, and
Yeah.
they rejected Deadlock.
Even though TR2 had been previously it finished really well in Series 8 as well.
Yeah, and I think this is another thing that kind of burst the bubble of the reboot, was we kind of learnt that if you have come third in the reboot, you're not coming back.
It's not enough to get you to come back, basically, because in the Classic Robot Wars series, they had seedings, so that robots that did well could come back.
And what, because progressing on more so, was when we were at Series 10, the fact that the producers said that they didn't want repeats of the grand final, hence why they put Apollo and Carbide in the same heat together, and yet you pretty much got repeats of the final anyway. And then when you went into Series 10, you had essentially what was the top three, because they rejected Ironside 3. Eruption, Carbide, and Aftershock in the same heat together.
Very deathy and everything. It's like it was just it seemed artificially stacked. You know, it wasn't particularly fair, if you know what I mean.
Because and there's another thing. Moving away from the whole side of the producers, because I do want to say that for another edition of this podcast.
Of course.
One of the things I want to say about what burst the bubble for this reboot was definitely the BBC.
Yeah.
Because when I was at a arts and entertainment convention in Glasgow, I was speaking to this guy, and he believes the reason why Robot Wars got cancelled, this was the reboot, he believed that the Apex and Traction fight was so dangerous, that's what made them cancel it. And I was like, no.
Because the safety for the arena was designed for that sort of thing anyway, so it wasn't foreseen.
And the thing is, because the polycarbonate as well, that even though it shattered, it did actually do what it was supposed to do, and that was stop the bar from flying into the secondary screen.
Yeah, it was meant to slow it down, basically, which is what it did.
I want to get to when the BBC first brought it back in 2016, was they nailed the promotion and build up quite a bit of hype until then.
But then, of course, it was contending with Blue Planet at the time, wasn't it?
No, that was I'll get to that. But at the time, I think it was the Rio 2016 Olympics.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, even though it was put up against that, it wasn't actually doing too bad for viewing. Because by the time we were going into Series 9, fantastic trailer for that, by the way, with the Vauxhall Corsa.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't really see that, and it wasn't as much notice in timing compared to the last series. However, with this one, it was in terms of what they put it up against that saw a massive dip in view. Because there's somebody who goes by the name of either Trilby Reviews or Mr. TARDIS Reviews, and he perfectly summed up as to the fact that the BBC were doing their absolute best to kill off the newer Robot Wars, and they made absolutely no attempt whatsoever to hide it out of plain sight.
Well, not they really weren't promoting it very well by the time we got to Series 10, and I think with the World Series, that was the last thing that was shown. There just seems something really half-arsed about it.
March 2018, the news broke out that the BBC confirmed the decision to axe Robot Wars, and the fact that there was also a release from BBC Press saying that it was to make way for other shows.
Exciting new programs, that was their wording, I believe.
But they didn't really necessarily say so much as to why else they covered it. Because notice how there was absolutely no mention of the viewing figures.
Yeah.
And it really shows, based from their lack of evidence and the lack of any given reason why they cancelled it, it was a blessing in disguise.
Because then, of course, the live scene got a new lease of life as a result of that.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, in my opinion, I think that Robot Wars could have... It felt like it had more in it from where it ended in Season 10, so, maybe it could have gotten a lot bigger in a subsequent series.
I felt it still had more to give,
Yeah, it definitely had more to give, but, I mean, as has been alluded to, BBC just didn't seem really interested, or they seemed like they had bigger fish that they wanted to fry. So maybe the plug was pulled before the time was right. But if anything, it did give us one heck of a great online community, which is still going great.
That's we do owe a lot to the reboot series. I mean, the bubble that it made may not have been as big, but if anything, it's made a whole new bubble beyond Robot Wars itself into the live community now.
Oh yeah, definitely, because Roman Robots behind Extreme Robots, after the cancellation of Robot Wars, it's kind of proved that there are still people hungry for robot combat action, and they are still having sellout shows, because regardless of that be Roman Robots or Robots Live.
The Bristol Bot Builders actually had a segment on a recent showing on BBC News Southwest about robot combat.
I did feature briefly in that, but one thing I do want to say is that the reporter referred to the arena as a Perspex arena. I know I'm going to seem like a killjoy for saying this, but that is actually a dangerous comment to make.
Yeah.
Because we all know that Perspex, if you try to use that for an arena of any kind, for any weight division, somebody's going to die.
If you try, if in the past you tried cutting, in the past you tried to build a robot and you were cutting up a CD case or something and it cracked, well, just imagine that happening with the arena.
I mean, just like the worst case scenario would be is either somebody dies or they end up in intensive care.
I imagine if people were curious enough, they might go and ask people in these communities and everything what to get. Like, oh, where do I get this Perspex from? Oh, no, don't get Perspex, get Polycarp.
Yeah, I think a small thing like that, I don't think is going to... Someone I don't think is going to run out and build their own arena because they overheard somebody just very, very briefly mention it on the news. I think that, I mean, seeing visibility for robot combat now on any kind of, big media, whether or not that's TV, whether that's online, is absolutely great. I mean, I love kind of seeing that kind of recognition from sources other than, kind of our own little circles. So, yeah, absolutely. I think it's, I ran out of steam on that.
So that then just about wraps up the Robot Wars bubble. We took you back into the past, amongst all the merchandise, all the memories.
There were a lot of them.
Yeah, there was a lot in between.
A lot in between. Some things obvious, some things that you never would have known until today.
Yep, like the Robots HP tomato sauce, weirdness. I can't say I'm going to be grabbing one of those after the show, but I think I probably will want to go and hunt down that Wars board game at the very least.
That would be really cool. We can always have a wee go at it at RoboNorth one day, maybe. Anyway, in the meantime, I just want to say, if you're still listening, thank you for listening, if indeed you still are. And we'll take care.
Bye.
Take care.